want to put the foot into external rotation of about 10 to 15 degrees. So our toes, we're going to be pointing them out about 10 to 15 degrees. With the non-working limb, we want the heel in line with the toes of the working limb. So we're just going to bring the foot forward. And then with the working leg, we... Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to be your own therapist by demonstrating the top 5 strengthening exercises for valgus knees. And before I actually get on with the exercises, I first want to explain what exactly valgus knees are and why exactly you should care. Whenever you hear the term valgus, that refers to a lateral force. Lateral meaning away from the midline. So whenever you have valgus knees, that means that a lateral force is pushing the knees closer toward the midline. And this is what is commonly referred to as knock knees. Now, with regard to valgus knees, there are a few problems that can arise if you don't address it. You can develop problems with low back pain, hip pain, knee pain, ankle pain. So it's definitely something that you would want to address and address it immediately. And with regard to valgus knees, it's often going to be coupled with several things. One, you're going to get medial rotation of the femur, and then you're also going to get adduction of the femur. And then the second thing is that your vastus medialis, or just the muscles on the inner portion or the medial aspect of the knee, are going to be very, very weak. So in order to correct this issue, what you would want to do is you would want to strengthen the muscles that are responsible for laterally rotating the femur, abducting the femur, and also you want to strengthen the muscles on the medial aspect of the knee, things like the vastus medialis. So those are going to be the exercises we're going to be doing for you guys today. And without further ado, here are the top 5 strengthening exercises for valgus knees. The first strengthening exercise for valgus knees is going to be for the gluteus medius muscle. Specifically, we are going to be targeting the anterior fibers of the gluteus medius muscle. And for this exercise, we want to be in a sideline position. Your arm, you can put it wherever you want, wherever it's most comfortable. So we're going to go ahead and lay down on our side. I'm going to rest my arm underneath my head. Then the bottom leg is the leg we are not working. For that one, we want to go ahead and flex our hip and knee. And then with the top arm, we're going to go ahead and grab a hold of our shin. The top leg, that's going to be the gluteus medius muscle that we're working. And for this one, we want to go into maximum hip extension, and we want to maintain some slight flexion in the knee. The reason that we're slightly flexing the knee is to release some of the tension on the tensor fasciae lati muscle. And then at the ankle, we want to go into pseudo inversion. So we're going to dorsiflex the ankle by pointing the toes up toward our head, and then we're going to invert by pointing the sole down toward the ground. We're then going to go into maximum medial rotation of the femur by pointing the leg down toward the ground. And then in terms of the principle of action, we want to maintain the hip extension, maintain all of the components that we listed, and then go into abduction of the femur by bringing the leg up toward the sky. And this is the strengthening exercise for the gluteus medius muscle, specifically the anterior fibers of the gluteus medius muscle. Next, the second strengthening exercise for valgus knees is going to be for the gluteus minimus muscle. For this one, we're going to specifically be targeting the superior-posterior fibers. The reason we're targeting those fibers is because with regard to the gluteus minimus, it does both medial and lateral rotation of the femur, and we want to strengthen specifically the lateral rotators of the femur. And with regard to the gluteus minimus, the superior and posterior fibers of the gluteus minimus are going to be the ones responsible for lateral rotation. For this one, once again, we are in a sideline position, so we're going to go ahead and get into the exact same position, and all we're going to need is a yoga block for this exercise. With regard to the positioning, the bottom leg, that's the non-working leg. We're going to flex the hip and knee to about 45 degrees, and then with the working leg, what we want to do is we are going to flex the hip to 90 degrees and flex the knee to 90 degrees as well. For this exercise, we want to place the yoga block underneath our knee so that our femur or our thigh bone is parallel to the ground. And then in terms of the principle of action, first thing we want to do, go into pseudo inversion by dorsiflexing the ankle, inverting the ankle, and then what we want to do is just go into medial rotation by bringing our ankle up toward the sky. And this is the strengthening exercise for the gluteus minimus muscle. Next, the third strengthening exercise for valgus knees is going to be for the piriformis. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the superficial fibers of the piriformis muscle. For this one, once again, we are going to be in a sideline position, and you can place your arm wherever you want, wherever it's most comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and get down on my side. And then in terms of the actual positioning, the bottom leg is going to be the non-working leg. And for the bottom leg, we want to flex the hip and knee to 90 degrees or even above 90 degrees. And then with the bottom leg, there's going to be 3 different positions depending on the fibers that we want to work on. The first one, we're going to be targeting the superior fibers. For all of them, we want to place a yoga block underneath our ankle. And to do that, we want to flex first the femur to 30 degrees, and then we want to flex the knee to 90 degrees. Once we have our setup position, we are going to place the yoga block underneath our ankle. The next thing that we want to do is we are going to go into dorsiflexion and eversion of the ankle. We're not doing inversion this time. So because we're doing eversion, we're pointing the sole of the foot away from the ground. And then the principle of action is we're going from adduction and internal rotation to abduction and external rotation. And this is the strengthening exercise for the piriformis muscle. Specifically, we are focusing on the superior fibers. Then, if we want to focus on the middle fibers, instead of 30 degrees of hip flexion, we are going to go into 50 degrees of hip flexion. So we're flexing the hip just a little bit more, and we're just going to move the yoga block so that we can allow for that 50 degree of hip flexion. Then, from this position over here, everything is pretty much exactly the same. We're allowing our leg to drop into adduction and medial rotation, and then the actual principle of action, we want to maintain the dorsiflexion and eversion, and we're going to go into external rotation and abduction by bringing our leg up toward the sky. And this is the strengthening exercise for the piriformis muscle, specifically the middle fibers of the piriformis muscle. And then last, the third position is going to be for the inferior fibers. For the inferior fibers, we're going to flex our hip another 20 degrees to 70 degrees. We don't want to flex it too much because once we start getting past 70 degrees, closer to 90, it ends up reversing its action and it becomes a medial hip rotator. So if we go past that mark, then this is no longer going to be strengthening the piriformis. So make sure that you don't pass 70 degrees of hip flexion. But from this position over here, everything else is exactly the same. We just gotta position the yoga block so that we can get into a 70-degree position. So I'm gonna lower it just a little bit more. And then everything else is the same. The knee is flexed to 90 degrees. We got dorsiflexion and eversion of the ankle. And then with regard to the femur, we're dropping it down so that we are in medial rotation and adduction. And then the principle of action, we are going to strengthen it by raising our knee up toward the sky. And this is the strengthening exercise for the piriformis muscle, specifically the inferior fibers of the piriformis muscle. And in terms of progressing it, what you could do is if you are a therapist doing this exercise with a patient, you could push down on the knee and have them apply pressure against your resistance. If you're doing this by yourself, then what you could do is add some resistance bands or even put some ankle weights on your actual kneecap. The fourth strengthening exercise for valgus knees is going to be for the vastus medialis muscle, and this is going to be the Peterson step up. I absolutely love this exercise for correcting this imbalance, and all you're going to need is a small step. With regard to the step, up to mid shin height would be ideal, but what you want to do for this exercise is with the leg that we are working, that's going to be the leg that's on the step. So we're going to go ahead and place it on there. We want to put the foot into external rotation of about 10 to 15 degrees. So our toes, we're going to be pointing them out about 10 to 15 degrees. With the non-working limb, we want the heel in line with the toes of the working limb. So we're just going to bring the foot forward. And then with the working leg, we want to be up on the tippy toes. So our heel is lifted up on the ground. And then with the non-working leg, it's the opposite. Our heel is down on the ground, but our toes are up. The reason that we're doing this is so we can avoid using our toes to propel our bodies up toward the ceiling. We want to make sure that all of the movement is coming from the actual working leg. So again, the working leg is on the step, 10 to 15 degrees of external rotation, the heel is up, the toes are down, and then on the opposite leg, the heel is down, the toes are up. And then for this exercise, all you want to do is you are going to step up and then come back down, and you want to try and land nice and gently. You don't want to just drop down into it. So you're just coming up, coming back down. And then with regard to this exercise right over here, one more thing worth noting is when you are doing it, you want to make sure that you have that dorsiflexion the entire time on the non-working leg. So the leg that's on the floor, the entire time you want your toes elevated, that way you don't use your foot to propel it. But that was the fourth strengthening exercise for valgus knees, and that was the Peterson step up for the vastus medialis muscle. And lastly, the fifth and final strengthening exercise for valgus knees is going to be a strengthening exercise for the semimembranosus muscle. Specifically, we are going to be targeting the distal fibers and the superficial fibers of the semimembranosus muscle. For this exercise right over here, we are going to be in a prone position, meaning you are going to be on your stomach. And what you want to do for this one is you want to maintain some slight abduction of the femur, so abduction. We're bringing our leg out to the side. We're going to flex our knee a little bit, and then we want to go into external rotation. External, meaning we are going to bring our ankle toward the opposite ankle. We are then going to go into pseudo-inversion by dorsiflexing our ankle and inverting our ankle. Next, from this position over here, the main principle of action is we are just going to flex the knee as far as we can. So all we want to do is, while maintaining that slight abduction and slight external rotation, we are just going to flex the knee as much as you possibly can. And this is the segmental strengthening and reinforcement exercise for the semimembranosus muscle, specifically the distal fibers And there you have it. Those were the top 5 strengthening exercises for valgus knees. If you have any issues with regard to low back pain, hip pain, knee pain, or ankle pain, go ahead and give those exercises a try. And then in terms of the sets and repetitions, what you want to do is 3 sets of 50 repetitions for every single exercise. That's 5-0, not 1-5. The reason we're going so high with the repetitions is because we're trying to elicit a postural change and make some type of correction. And whenever we're trying to elicit a postural change, one of the most important things is going to be time under tension. So we want to be able to accumulate enough time under tension. And if we do the typical 8 to 12 bodybuilding repetition rep range, we're not going to be able to accumulate that time under tension. So 3 sets of 50 repetitions, that's what you want to do for those exercises. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be taking you through the top 5 myofascial stretching exercises for valgus knees. That's going to be dropping this Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. So be out on the lookout for that. But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys have any questions at all with regard to the exercises that I showed you, go ahead and ask your questions down in the comments section. And if you've tried them, give me your thoughts. Have you tried them? Did they work? How exactly do you feel when you do them? But that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to keep making these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.